So we live in a world of choices. In simplest terms, life is the decisions that we choose to take or the decisions that we choose not to take. And I think we take this for granted as if choices are just some arbitrary, simplistic part of life that really have no lasting consequences. Think of the lack of decisions that you made today, or think of the random decisions that you did make, and you don't really think of their consequences until later on in the day, or later on next week, or later on next month, when you realize that eating fast food every day has caused me to gain 15 pounds, and so on and so on. And I was reading Nietzsche last night, and he said that the simple things are actually quite complicated, and we never fully appreciate and acknowledge their greatness. Like, we can sufficiently never acknowledge the greatness in those simple things. And I think we've lost the art form of decision making. Look at the world and the political landscape and in the social landscape. I think we just make these rash decisions. We make these illogical decisions based on what? Kind of arbitrary meaning, arbitrary ideas. We never really put any deep thought into these things, right? Again, like I said, think of your last decision in choosing what food you're going to eat, fast food or a healthy choice. And we don't think about the lasting consequences. And I think we see this in the political landscape and the social landscape and the socio-economic landscape. We just kind of make these rash decisions without realizing how complicated they actually are, and without fully realizing the art form that comes with making a decision. And as I was reading Nietzsche's depiction of simple and complicated, and fully appreciating that, I thought of a juggler. Imagine a juggler juggling a few balls. And we notice that, but it seems quite simple. We could probably do that if we tried and practiced enough. And so he starts juggling some bowling pins, and we're like, okay, you're picking it up. But I mean, he's mastered that art so much that it just seems simple to us, but it's actually quite complicated. It actually took some preparation and time to practice that so that he made it look easy, right? And then he starts juggling some chainsaws, and other people start throwing in an extra chainsaw. And we begin to realize that the intricacies of that, and the complications that it takes, and the master that it made so simple looking on his part. And that made me think about our decisions on a daily basis that have become instinctual and habitual. We wake up and maybe we meditate, maybe we journal, maybe we do a few push-ups, we get up and take a shower, we get in a car maybe and we drive, and then we drive to work, and then we integrate and interact those social interactions and political interactions that you have to do in a work environment. Then we go sit at our desk and we work, and probably at an optimal level, because that's what we do, and that's why we get paid, because we're good at it. And then we get back in our car and drive to the gym, and we perform this elaborate workout routine that we've practiced and that we're good at. And then we go home, maybe we read, maybe we do some other things. And all throughout that day, it consists of all these decisions that we made or didn't make. And we take it for granted, but what if someone else that was never been in your environment came in and was to perform your daily task? It might be difficult for them. Maybe they wake up and they've never journaled, so they just can't work out their thoughts. Maybe they've never driven a car, so they can't even get to work. And so they take the bus and get to work, and they don't know how to work your system because that's not the decisions they've made. They don't know how to interact with your coworkers because that's not the environment they're used to. They can't perform that workout routine because they've never worked out. We've taken those decisions for granted, saying they're just simple, and the consequences are just an aftermath of those simple things. But that person can't reward or can't enjoy the rewards of those decisions because they don't even know how to fully make those decisions in your environment. And so we have to look at this on a larger scale. What decisions are people making? Are they just making them in this impatient, illogical manner? Or are they actually surveying out the consequences that are going to come from every decision? Think about that. Every decision has a consequence. And that's Thomas Sowell. He said there's these decisions, and if we don't make them, someone's going to make these decisions for us. We have to begin to recognize the art form of making decisions, right? Imagine Thomas Sowell said that if we don't make a decision, then decisions are going to be made for us, and it's not necessarily about the best decisions. It's about who's deciding what's best for us, and that's in the landscape of life right now. If you're failing to make decisions, then someone's making decisions for you, and who are those people? Who's deciding what's best for us? And we see this. We kind of fall in line with that herd mentality because it's easier to just, I don't want to make a decision. And I talked about this in the last video, that we kind of fall into that last man that Ubermensch, or the last man that Nietzsche talks about, and thus spoke Zarathustra about. We just kind of want to fall in line and hand us the next dopamine fix. And so it's easier to push that easy button and just kind of get this copy and paste template for us to follow, where we don't have to make any decisions. And it's a lighter burden, but then again, who's deciding what's best for you? And we see this in people's lives. They go along the course, you're supposed to go to college, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have children, you're supposed to. And we see people having this midlife crisis of who the hell am I? It's because they've lost that art form of being able to make decisions. And ultimately, what is it when you make a decision? It's power, right? We have the responsibility to make these powerful decisions in our life that on the surface level may seem simple, but they're actually quite complicated, right? And when something becomes complicated, there's always an art form to make it effective and efficient. Like the juggler, he put in hours practicing, and he knows just the right angle to flip and the right torque and the right velocity to get them all spinning in the right manner so that they can land and continue to go in flow. That's what it means to practice our decision making and begin to use them as a weapon. And I think that's what we fail to realize, is that our choices are weapons. Imagine a bow and arrow, and you're pulling back. And when you release that decision, it goes out and it's going to hit a target. But is it something that we're desire? Is it a desirable target, right? Imagine you're hunting. Am I shooting at just some worm-infested, rotten deer and bringing back an eating of that? Or am I aiming my decision at something that's going to bring me back something rewarding, something nourishing, something sustainable? And in our life, and on a larger scale in political life, we see people that are making decisions. Have we relinquished our decision making and allowed them to make decisions for us that do not fit our values, our beliefs, our direction? And if we're honest, I think the answer is no. I think we forfeit our sovereignty because it's easier to allow someone to make decisions for us, because we don't have to think hard. We just kind of live this simple life and we go with the flow of whatever everybody else is telling us. But in the current climate, we're beginning to realize that maybe those in power don't have our best interest at heart. And so I think we're going to see a movement back to the individuals beginning to reclaim that sovereignty, that responsibility of making decisions and knowing that every decision I make is going to have a consequence. Therefore, there's an art form to kind of mastering this and practicing this decision and seeing A, B, and C. Whenever I make this decision, this will lead to that, that will lead to this, and it's going to circle back around to me. Right? I think many times we just have this willy-nilly perception of I choose that and so what? And that comes with that 3 months later, you've gained 20 pounds because you haven't really thought about the decision of going to eat McDonald's every day. Thomas Sowell said, if you're not making a decision, someone else is. And we live in a materialistic consumerism culture that's economically driven. Right? So people have an agenda. If you're not going to drive your car, I promise you someone else is going to slip beside the steering wheel and they're going to drive it in the direction and the agenda that fits their interest. We wonder why we've lost power and we've lost sovereignty. It's because we're just not astonished at the complications and the beauty of what it means to actually make a decision. Imagine standing there or sitting there and reflecting 10, 15 minutes or a day or a week even over your next big decision. kind of ruminating over the ifs and ands, and what if this happens, and what if this comes, and what's the actual benefits, what's the negative consequences of this decision. Imagine if our policymakers did this. What if we did this on a daily basis? This decision has these benefits, it has these negative consequences, and we weigh the pros and the cons of that. And I'm not saying that we have to be this stuck, indecisive person that's always wondering and ruminating, well, should I not? No, think about it. Meditate upon the pros and cons, and then make a damn decision. We have to be decisive, or again, someone else will come along swiftly and make that decision for you. The importance is to realize that life is a set of decisions or decisions not made. Responsibility in making those decisions and seeing those as a true art form, that's a weapon. And when we release those decisions out as weapons, we're regaining that power to say, okay, this is my choice. And when I enact this choice, I'm choosing this set of consequences. And it's not always going to go as I planned, but then I've also thought about it long enough that I know how to respond when that situation arises. That's the power of thinking. That's the power of making truly impacting choices in our life. And then the responsibility part, hey, it's not always going to go as planned. Well, let's go back to the drawing board and think about the pros of that consequence, the negative of that consequence, and let's re-aim at the target that we're headed at. Because again, we're in control of our decisions. We're in control of what we're aiming at. And on surface level, it seems so simple. I choose this or I choose that. But as Nietzsche said, the simple things are often the most complicated. And as we know, I think we've lost the power of decision making, because we just, especially in a day and age of where we have so many choices, right? You go to the grocery store and there's so many options to buy. You go to the clothing store, there's so many options to buy. You're on social media, there's so many options of which content you're going to digest. We have so many options that many times we just kind of click, choose, pick, and we don't think of the consequences. If we want to reclaim some autonomy in our life, reclaim some sovereignty, reclaim that spiritness of being in control of our life and saying yes to the greatness that life offers, we have to be willing to say yes to the responsibility, the art form of making a decision as a weapon and aiming that at desirable targets.